Right now, as you're watching this, warships are repositioning in the Persian Gulf. Missiles are being armed in underground bunkers across Iran. And Israeli intelligence is running operations that won't make the news for another decade. The Middle East is not on the brink of war. It is already at war. You just haven't been told yet. See, what the media is selling you is a simple story. Iran versus Israel. Good versus evil. Pick a side. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is a three-way collision between Iran's nuclear ambitions, Israel's preemptive doctrine, and America's contradictory commitments to both stability and dominance. And sitting right in the middle of this collision is a narrow strip of water called the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz oil power control. 20% of the world's oil passes through that choke point every single day. If it closes, your gas prices don't just go up. The global economy goes into cardiac arrest, and every single player in this game knows it. So why is everyone pushing toward the edge? Because this was never about religion. It was never about ideology. As always, follow the money, follow the power. And the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. Let's start with the fact nobody wants to say out loud. Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than at any point in history. And I don't mean theoretically. I mean enrichment levels above 90%, weapons grade. The IAEA has confirmed this. The intelligence agencies have confirmed this. And yet the world is acting like this is still a negotiation. It's not. Iran crossed the threshold, and every diplomatic tool designed to prevent this moment has already failed. The JCPOA, the deal that was supposed to contain Iran's program, was abandoned in 2018. Since then, Iran has spun its centrifuges faster than anyone predicted. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. But Iran isn't trying to subdue anyone quietly. They are building leverage. A nuclear capability isn't just a weapon. It's an insurance policy. It means no one can do to Iran what was done to Iraq or Libya. Saddam didn't have nukes, and he ended up in a hole in the ground. Gaddafi gave up his program and was dragged through the streets. Iran learned the lesson. The bomb isn't about attacking Israel. It's about making sure no one attacks Iran. But here's where it gets dangerous, because Israel has a very different calculation, and that calculation has a deadline. Israel operates under a doctrine that most countries would consider extreme. It's called the Begin Doctrine, named after Menachem Begin, and it says one thing very clearly. No hostile nation in the Middle East will ever be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. Period. This isn't rhetoric. Israel bombed Iraq's Osirak reactor in 1981. It destroyed Syria's Al-Kibar reactor in 2007. Both times, the world condemned it. Both times. Israel did it anyway. Doctrine. Because for Israel, this isn't about international opinion. It's about survival. A single nuclear weapon detonated over Tel Aviv would effectively end the state of Israel. 7 million people live in a corridor smaller than New Jersey. There is no margin for error. So when Israeli officials say a nuclear Iran is an existential threat, they mean it literally. Not politically, not strategically, literally. And this is where the timeline gets terrifying. Intelligence estimates suggest Iran could assemble a functional warhead within weeks of a political decision to do so. Israel will not wait for that decision to be made. They will strike first. The question isn't if, it's when. If this reality is starting to unsettle you, hit like and subscribe to keep exposing what they hide. Because what comes next connects all of these dots. And it involves a country 6,000 miles away. The United States is caught in a trap of its own making. On one hand, Washington has given Israel an ironclad security guarantee. The relationship is backed by billions in annual military aid, intelligence sharing, and a political commitment that no president can walk away from without ending their career. On the other hand, the United States desperately needs stability in the Persian Gulf. Its economy, its alliances, its entire post-war order depends on oil flowing freely through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil dollars power empire. And here's the contradiction. If Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran has already promised a massive retaliation. That retaliation won't just target Israel. It will target American bases across the region. There are over 40,000 US troops stationed within range of Iranian missiles. In Iraq, in Qatar, in Bahrain, in the UAE. In war, truth is the first casualty. The truth here is simple. America cannot support an Israeli strike on Iran without being dragged into a full-scale regional war. and it cannot abandon Israel without destroying the most important alliance in its Middle East strategy. This is the triangle: Israel's survival instinct, Iran's nuclear ambition, America's impossible promise, and all three are accelerating toward the same point of collision. But the real weapon in this conflict isn't nuclear. It's geographic. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. That's it. 21 miles separating the global economy from collapse. Every single day, roughly 21 million barrels of oil pass through this choke point. That's 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption. Choke point. If Iran closes the strait, oil prices don't just spike, they explode. We're talking $200, $300 a barrel overnight. Gas at $10 a gallon in the United States. Supply chains breaking across Europe and Asia. And Iran knows this. They've built their entire defensive strategy around it. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has deployed thousands of fast attack boats, anti-ship missiles, and naval mines along the Iranian coastline. They don't need to win a naval war. They just need to make the strait unusable. Even a partial blockade, even the threat of a blockade, sends insurance rates for oil tankers through the roof. Ships start moving. Markets panic. Iran does not need a nuclear bomb to hold the world hostage. It just needs to threaten 21 miles of water. This is the card Iran plays every time tensions rise, and every time the world blinks, because nobody can afford the alternative. But this time, the calculus might be different, because the players surrounding Iran are making moves of their own. Iran doesn't fight its wars directly. It fights them through proxies. And this network is the most sophisticated non-state military infrastructure on the planet. Hezbollah in Lebanon, over 150,000 rockets pointed at Israel. Hamas in Gaza. The Houthis in Yemen, who have already demonstrated the ability to strike Saudi Arabia and disrupt Red Sea shipping. Militias in Iraq and Syria that regularly target American positions. 1. Hezbollah in Lebanon with 150,000 rockets. 2. Houthis in Yemen, disrupting global shipping. 3. Militias in Iraq, targeting US bases. 4. Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. This isn't a random collection of groups, it's a coordinated axis. Iran calls it the axis of resistance, and it was designed for exactly this moment. If Israel strikes Iran, the response won't come from Tehran alone. It will come from every direction simultaneously. Rockets from Lebanon, drones from Yemen, missiles from Iraq. Multi-front war chaos. Israel's Iron Dome is impressive, but it was never designed to handle saturation attacks from 4 directions at once. And this is what makes a preemptive strike so risky. Israel might destroy Iran's nuclear facilities, but in doing so, it would unleash a firestorm that could burn across the entire region. And the burning wouldn't stop at military targets. While the world focuses on Iran and Israel, Saudi Arabia is playing the longest game in the room. The Abraham Accords were supposed to normalize relations between Israel and the Arab world, and they did, partially. The UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, they all signed on. But the big prize was always Saudi Arabia. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and Saudi Arabia and Israel share a common enemy: Iran. For decades, Riyadh has watched Tehran expand its influence across the region with growing alarm. The Houthis in Yemen are an Iranian proxy on Saudi Arabia's southern border. Iranian-backed militias threaten Saudi oil infrastructure. The 2019 attack on Aramco facilities at Abqaiq proved that Iran could strike at the heart of Saudi oil production whenever it chose. Saudi Arabia needs Israel as much as Israel needs Saudi Arabia. But here's the gamble. Mohammed bin Salman wants normalization with Israel, but he wants something in return: a Palestinian state framework, American security guarantees, and potentially access to civilian nuclear technology. The Saudis are negotiating for their own nuclear program. Think about that. The solution to one nuclear crisis could plant the seeds of the next one. And meanwhile, there's another player at the table that most analysts are underestimating. Every conflict in the Middle East is also a battlefield for great power competition. And in this one, Russia and China are not sitting on the sidelines. Russia has been Iran's primary arms supplier for years. The S-300 air defense system that protects Iranian nuclear sites is Russian-made. Russian military advisors operate inside Iran. And Moscow has a strategic interest in keeping the Middle East unstable because instability drives up oil prices. And Russia is an oil economy. Moscow-Beijing-Tehran alliance. China's interest is different but equally powerful. Iran is one of China's largest oil suppliers. The two countries signed a 25-year strategic cooperation agreement worth an estimated $400 billion. If the Strait of Hormuz closes, China loses a critical energy lifeline. But Beijing has also calculated that American overextension in the Middle East serves Chinese interests in the Pacific. Every American carrier group deployed to the Persian Gulf is one fewer carrier group near Taiwan. This is the hidden dimension of the Iran-Israel conflict. It's not just regional. It's the front line of a global power realignment. When empires compete, the battlefield is never just one place, and the people who suffer most are never the ones making the decisions. Which brings us to the human cost that nobody wants to talk about. Here's what gets lost in the strategic analysis: the human cost. If this conflict escalates, the civilian toll will be catastrophic. Iran has 88 million people. Israel has 9 million. Lebanon has 5 million. And the populations caught between these forces have no say in what happens next. Millions. An Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear facilities would likely target sites near population centers. Natanz, Isfahan, Fordo. The fallout, both literal and figurative, would affect millions of Iranian civilians who have nothing to do with their government's nuclear ambitions. And the retaliation would be worse. Hezbollah's rockets aren't precision weapons. They're area-effect munitions aimed at Israeli cities. War planners talk about acceptable casualties, but no casualty is acceptable to the person dying. The refugee crisis alone would destabilize every neighboring country. Jordan, already hosting millions of refugees, would face collapse. Turkey would see another wave. Europe, still processing the consequences of the Syrian refugee crisis, would face pressure that could break the EU's cohesion entirely. In war, whichever side may call itself the victor, there are no winners, but all are losers. The human cost is always the argument that gets made last and forgotten first. But it shouldn't be, because ultimately, this conflict isn't about governments. It's about what governments are willing to sacrifice. And it's always the same answer. Let's talk about what this means for you, not in some abstract geopolitical sense. For your wallet, your job, your daily life. If the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted even partially, global oil supply drops by 20% overnight. That triggers a price shock that makes the 1973 oil crisis look mild. Gas prices, inflation, collapse. Everything in your economy runs on oil, not just your car. The trucks that deliver food to your grocery store, the ships that bring goods from overseas, the factories that make everything you buy. The plastics, the chemicals, the fertilizers that grow your food. Oil isn't just energy, it's the bloodstream of modern civilization. When oil stops flowing, everything stops with it. Central banks would face an impossible choice: raise rates to fight inflation and crash the economy, or keep rates low and watch prices spiral out of control. Either way, ordinary people pay the price, while the powerful profit. Defense stocks surge. Oil companies post record profits, the same pattern every time. And this is why the Strait of Hormuz matters more than any nuclear facility, because the bomb Iran already has isn't uranium, it's geography. It's the ability to turn a faucet and watch the world economy bleed. And that brings us to the question that matters most. Every war has winners, and they are never the people fighting it. The military-industrial complex in the United States generates over $900 billion a year. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, their stock prices rise every time tensions escalate. 1. Defense contractors profit from escalation. 2. Oil companies profit from supply disruption. 3. Banks profit from crisis lending. 4. Politicians profit from wartime power. The oil majors profit from supply disruption. The banks profit from crisis lending. And the politicians profit from the expanded powers that come with wartime governance. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented, verifiable financial reality. In 2003, Dick Cheney's former company Halliburton received $39.5 billion in Iraq-related contracts. After the 2019 Aramco attack, oil stocks surged within hours. War is a racket. It always has been. Smedley Butler was a two-time Medal of Honor recipient, the most decorated Marine in American history at the time. And he spent his retirement warning the public that wars are fought by the poor for the profit of the rich. Nothing has changed. The question is never who starts the war, but who profits from it. And when you understand that, you understand everything about why the Middle East never finds peace. So here we are, Iran racing toward a nuclear threshold, Israel preparing a strike it considers existential, America trapped between its alliances and its interests, the Strait of Hormuz holding the global economy hostage, proxy networks ready to ignite from 4 directions, and behind it all, the same forces that have profited from every conflict in modern history, quietly positioning themselves for the next one. Follow the money, always. This isn't about good versus evil. It never was. It's about power, resources, and the willingness to sacrifice millions of lives for strategic advantage. The Middle East isn't on the brink of collapse because of ancient hatreds or religious differences. It's on the brink because the current arrangement benefits too many powerful people for it to ever be truly resolved. Peace is unprofitable, and that is why it remains so elusive. But here's what they don't want you to know. The more people who understand this pattern, the harder it becomes to repeat. Knowledge isn't just power, it's resistance. If you made it this far, comment Hormuz hostage to prove you see the pattern they don't want you to see. Every government lies. The question is, what are they lying about?